Well, just want to welcome everyone to our first podcast. This is Payroc, Wyoming, and doing a spotlight on local businesses. Today we have Dave from Copper Cup Coffee. We're going to talk to him a little bit about his journey and get to know Dave and his wife Ari and what they're doing over there on South Ash Street. So, Dave, why don't you just introduce who you are and what do you do?
Well, I'm David Starcevich. My wife and I own the Copper Cup Coffee Company. We roast coffee beans. We have a full-scale cafe, do events, services, that kind of thing. Any sort of coffee consulting. So pretty broad.
Okay.
Getting into a number of different things, but
Nice.
what I started off doing was I got an engineering background. Did some time at power plants as a mechanical engineer. Spent some time most recently with refiners, gas plants, power plants as a chemical engineer. So doing chemical consulting, sales, that kind of thing. Ended up doing a deep dive into coffee, and this is where we ended up. So
Nice.
my wife is the one that actually started with the passion for coffee. She did some traveling when she was younger and ended up finding a love for coffee, and I just got hyper fixated on it after that. So
Cool.
that's how we ended up here.
So where is Copper Cup Coffee? Where's it located?
631 Ash, right across from the Natrona County football field, right next to Reed's Wraps, caddy corner from the office.
Got it. Okay. Shout out to Reed's Wraps. On the
There you
corner
go.
there.
Yeah.
Sean, good friend of ours. So let's start talking about coffee. So what makes Copper Cup different? Why is Copper Cup a different coffee shop compared to the other coffee shops in Casper?
Right. Well, I'd like to view us as engineered coffee. We take beans that are very specialty coffee. So in the coffee world, you got two different types. You have your more commodity type coffees, which are more typically going to be found in your chain restaurants, that kind of thing. And then your specialty coffee, which is your higher end graded coffees. So on a scale of 0 to 100, anything above an 80 is going to be a specialty coffee. Those are specifically what we deal with, and that is the first part of a high-grade coffee product. And then the next step is the care that we take in roasting it, the amount of time we spend in dialing in roast, flavor profiles, that kind of thing. And then finally dialing in our brewing processes. So everything from the espresso machine to the pour over to anything that we do is tracked, measured, tested.
Interesting.
So for the full process that we have the coffee till it gets to the customer, we're in control of the variables, and we try to manage those the best we can to give the best product. And so a lot of care is taken into that. I think that's something that separates us from most everywhere else.
Okay. So it sounds like there's a whole science involved in brewing a cup of coffee.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of science, a lot of data collection, a lot of time spent doing testing theories, comparing coffee side by side. So there's a lot of tasting involved, developing the palate to kind of target certain flavors that you might be after.
Interesting. What about you? What's your favorite cup of coffee that you like to pour over there? Is there a kind of coffee, a type of coffee? What do you like to do?
Well, I went through a bit of a coffee transition. So like I said, my wife is the one who got us going on this project from her passion. I actually started off as a chocolate milk guy. So when we would go to a Starbucks or whatever, I would order the chocolate milk, and Ari would be the coffee person. And eventually she got me to try a caramel macchiato, so a super sugary drink, something sweet. And eventually I started working my way through the drink, so a Americano with cream, finally an Americano, to the point of just doing 4 shots over ice. And so I had a pretty full progression of starting my palate, preferring things that are sweet, to transitioning my palate to the point where I typically don't drink anything with much sugar in it anymore.
Okay.
So my thing now, if I'm evaluating coffees, is just using a pour over method, and comparing side by side via pour over.
Okay.
I think that gives me a lot of control over the flavor profile, gives me a good idea of what the coffee is and how that relates to an espresso or a pour over or any other coffee brewing method. So
what does that exactly mean? Well, what is a pour over compared to an espresso? What's the difference?
Right. So the big difference. So going into the chemistry of what we're doing here, chemistry comes down to kinetics, and kinetics is a couple of things: time, temperature, and contact surface or surface area. So in the coffee context, an espresso is a high pressure, short time, very fine coffee grounds. And so the fineness of the coffee, you're increasing the surface area, so you need less time to extract the coffee. Mm-hmm. In a pour-over method, you're using a coarser grind, so the surface area is much less, and so the time is increased. Okay. So both of those are going to be hot. Now, if you compare that to like a cold brew, now you've dropped the temperature. You have a fairly low surface area on the coffee grounds, and what you're using is time to extract coffee. So whereas in an espresso, you're talking, 25 to 30 seconds, a pour over, 2.5 to 3 minutes. Okay. A cold brew, you're talking 12 hours. 12 hours.
And how does that affect the taste profile? How does that affect that?
It depends on how you adjust the different variables. So, for example, the window on an espresso is actually pretty tight. If you end up under extracting, you get a coffee with pretty weak body, an unpleasant bittery taste. If you're over extracting, you can get bittery sour taste. Mm-hmm. On a pour over, you have a little broader bandwidth for most people. This is the other thing, is you're dealing with people who have a lot of different perceptions. They are able to pick up on things differently. Most people don't have a palate that's attenuated to be able to pick up a lot of those differences, so you can get away with being a little loose on some of those things. Mm-hmm. People who've trained their palate on what to look for, well, now you're able to start picking up some fine details. And that's something we do in the coffee shop, especially with the baristas. Oftentimes they'll have questions why we do things the way we do. Why is it important to do it this way? Mm-hmm. And the easiest way is just to do it side by side. So
right, interesting.
We'll actually set up a test where we'll do it our way, the way that we found best to do it, versus what the way that they would have done it. Mm-hmm. And we'll taste the differences. And as you explain it to them and kind of walk them through what to look for, they're able to pick that up, and they easily are able to go, this is better this way.
Interesting. So there's a lot of A/B, testing to see what's better. So would you say that the coffee profile is subjective?
Not necessarily. Okay, so I'm not someone who believes in I don't know. Generally, most people are looking for a similar quality. Mm-hmm. Now, the flavors can change and the roast profiles can change, but generally, what's considered good is considered good by most people. Okay. Like, in the coffee context, people who say they like dark coffee, that doesn't necessarily mean they like burnt coffee. Right. Very few people will objectively like burnt coffee. Right. And so and oftentimes once you give them even a darker roast that's got a nice profile to it and good tasting notes, this quality that's not bitter or acrid, they can taste the difference. And if they're being objective about it, they will prefer this over the burnt mm-hmm. coffee.
Interesting. So what is a profile? Can you give me the examples of how does a coffee, what's it made up of? What is it?
So there's a number of dimensions that you look at. Some of the ones that are easiest to look at is the acidity. So what does the coffee do to your mouth? How does it react? So something that's going to be really citrusy, you're going to get that lemony, mouth-watering feeling, or orange or something like that. Something that's low in acid, your mouth is going to be more dry. Okay. So the response that your mouth makes to the coffee is a good basis for acidity. Mm-hmm. Number two would be like body. In a science context, that's you're trying to evaluate the total suspended solids in the coffee. How much stuff is there? Mm-hmm. And so something that's full body is going to have a lot of stuff. It's going to be thick. Something that's thin body is not going to have a lot of that TSS or stuff in the coffee, and so it comes off as thin. Okay. The balance between bitter and sugar. Mm-hmm. So one of the processes that goes into roasting is the caramelization process. And in that process, you're taking the sugars, or in this case, saccharides, but you're converting them into more bitter, flavorful compounds. And the balance of those two is what brings balance to the cup. Mm-hmm. So the same process of making caramel on the stove, where you're taking sugar, something that's very sweet, almost purely sweet, and unpleasant. Like, it's hard to eat just plain sugar. Mm-hmm. But by the caramelization process, where you're adding more and more bitter as it browns, mm-hmm. you get to a point where that caramel is now in balance, and that's what brings us that pleasurable caramelized flavor. Now, if you go too far, now you're out of balance towards the bitter end. So you're providing bitterness up into balance, and then eventually you start getting more and more bitter to the point of acrid or burnt charcoal.
Interesting. Well, there's a lot to that. There's a lot more to mm-hmm. it than I actually thought, and it sounds like you definitely know your stuff.
Yeah.
So what's the most common drink that people order at Copper Cup?
We put a lot of work into thinking about the menu, and as with anything, you can make it as complicated as you want to. And Ari and I, we try to operate under the philosophy to simplify things as much as possible. We thought that most people probably ordered a latte, and that's true. Most people in general day-to-day life are drinking a latte, espresso shots with milk, and some combination of flavor, maybe a different milk, that kind of thing. But generally, that's what people are after. And then the people who are knowledgeable enough to know, I like this specific thing, know the questions to ask. So, for example, someone who understands the difference between a flat white, a latte, and a cappuccino, they're able to make that differentiation and know what they're looking for.
Interesting.
And so we still train our baristas to know those things, but it's not necessarily something that we try to bother the general coffee drinker with.
Okay, and unless they want to know, I would imagine,
Right.
because it seems like there's a lot of similarities with other drinks that we could taste, and so when there's a tasting profile, we can compare it to other types of.
Yeah.
So
That's actually a curious thing. There's a kind of a misconception sometimes that we as people like choices, and that is not necessarily true.
All right.
We as humans find choices really hard to make, and it's really hard for us. And so we try to narrow that window as much as possible. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I think we can talk forever on coffee, but I'd like to go a little deeper on how coffee sometimes and coffee shops in general affect communities. How has Copper Cup Coffee affected the local community here in Casper, and what are you doing to be involved in the local community?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. So Ari and I both, we felt a calling to do this to build community. The name of the company, Copper Cup, actually has some roots in Butte, Montana. They have their history is a copper mine, and my family's from there. I went to school there. So Ari and I both have a lot of history in Butte. And one of the things that's really cool about that place and very unique is its community structure. They're very tight-knit, very close to one another. They have really good communities that are able to support each other, and they're just very tight-knit people.
Right.
And so that was one of our missions that we really strove for in coming up with this coffee shop. We wanted it to be a place where people could meet, we could build community, build relationships, and help people as much as we can to network and to be a part of the community.
Interesting.
And kind of take a different approach from the social media, phone aspect of networking, where we're really striving to force people into those person-to-person relationships, face-to-face communication, that kind of thing.
Right.
Because it gets harder and harder in these days.
It does. You're absolutely right, and that's the whole subject in itself of how do we communicate with people? Are we distracted by our phones? Are we distracted by time? And coffee shops, for centuries have been the place where people can come together and talk and discuss.
Yeah.
There's a lot of organizations and groups that like to gather in coffee shops. And how do you support those organizations here in Casper? How do you support groups that want to have a place to meet?
We've run into a number of groups. So some of my favorite are the Bible studies that come through. That's fantastic to be a part of and to be able to support. That brings a lot of fulfillment and joy to both Ari and I. Recently we've tapped into a bit of a CrossFit community where we've, made some really close friends, and have jumped into their workout routines, which has been good. So Ari and I have both been jumping in on that and building, networking across that different space. The group that we really targeted in the beginning and we saw that there was the biggest gap in serving in our community was mothers and kids. And so another thing that makes us unique as a coffee shop is our acceptance of kids, moms. We have a corner in the back for kids to play, moms to sit and chat. And so we actually get a number of groups of moms that'll come in with their strollers. The kids can play. The moms can have their time with one another without having to worry about their kids running amok. We're a very family-friendly, family-oriented place. We actually live in the building. Our kids are there. We have 3 kids. So that is very deeply ingrained and incorporated into our business, and it's something that we feel is super important to building community, is supporting kids, giving them a place to be, and giving moms a place to be too.
That's wonderful. That's great. Can you share a memorable moment that's happened in the last few months with a group that was there that might have, that really felt like this is why we're here and this is why we're doing what we're doing?
Yeah. I give a shout out to Mark and Malachi. I mentioned you guys we've been working out with, but these guys come in every day in the morning. It gives us a chance to sit down and have some laughs. Share some time together. They've been quite a blessing to us too. So provide some levity to the day-to-day work. A lot of times Ari and I get wrapped in, and we're probably working 16, 18-hour days every single day. It's been nonstop, and so having those periods of levity is kind of nice. And so I appreciate those guys making us a part of their lives, and that's been super helpful.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Community is everything.
It is everything. Yeah, relationships, community.
Yeah.
From anything in business too. I'm a firm believer that even in business, relationships are everything. This relationship that we have, I find a lot of value in. I did a lot of research in the beginning when we were first starting this business, and one of the things that was really important to me was how payments are processed and how we optimize the payment processing thing. I put a lot of time into thinking about that. It's something that really goes unnoticed, but when you run the calculations and you see that you're spending $15,000-$20,000 a year on payment processing, it becomes a big deal.
It does, absolutely.
And it adds up quickly. And so I did a lot of research, talked to a lot of people. The guys at Reed's Wraps, Guadalajara's, they pointed me to you, and quick phone call. We went through the details. The important thing to me was being able to manage that transaction fee better, and I was very appreciative of your attention and the time you took to get us lined out. And we've developed a relationship over the past couple months. It's been very useful. We reach out to one another often on a number of different topics, and including life and business opportunities and a number of things. So
absolutely, no, it's great. It's been mutually beneficial. That's for sure. It's always. I like to find relationships and develop relationships with the people that I work with, because I share your definition of business. It's about relationships. It's not about that sale or that commission or that structure, but how can we mutually help each other to for the betterment of Casper, for the betterment of this community. So so that's great. That's great to hear, and I'm happy that I was able to help you. How else has technology helped you in your business?
Well, like I mentioned, the Payroc solution to our payment processing has been huge. The partnership they have with Clover and being able to incorporate the Clover hard technology with the Payroc the payment processing has been super useful for us. So the Clover machines are very user friendly. We train a number of baristas throughout the year. That piece in it's very intuitive. They're able to pick it up right away. So that is a piece off of our plate. It's generally easy to do your first day. Easy. The Payroc on the processing side goes without a hitch. That's not an issue at all. It's been wonderful just having that off of your plate and being able to focus on the actual business operation side of things. Some other technologies that we generally use, just from a roaster standpoint, data collection. We collect all the temperature as we roast coffee beans. So temperatures, airflows, gas position, all these things. And these are all tracked every single roast that we do. They're compared to one another, and there are certain specs that a coffee roast have to meet before we will sell it. If they don't meet the specs, they don't make the shelves. So it's very important. It's data that we watch for our quality assurance.
Okay. Interesting. So do you do a lot of training? Do you train your baristas regularly, or?
Yeah. In fact, my wife has been training a new one this past week, and it's been good. So when we first started, it was a little more difficult. We had a big learning curve. So a lot of that was us learning alongside the baristas at the time. Now a few months in, we've got a pretty good idea of what our expectations are, what needs to be done throughout the day, and how we best train people to do that job. And so Ari's been training a couple of new girls, and so we're looking forward to having them on the team. And she's been doing a good job showing them, being shoulder to shoulder with them and showing them how the drinks are made, why it's important to do things a certain way, expectations on it's specifically our relationship with our customers. That's one of the things we preach to our baristas is developing those interpersonal skills, relationships, having communication. Those things are very important to us, and so we make sure that that's ingrained in them. Like that is the expectation, is that you make people feel welcome, you take care of them, we're here to serve. Mm-hmm. That relationship needs to be genuine. Mm-hmm. So that's very important. This isn't just a place where you come and order and leave. A lot of it is conversation oriented too. One more thing on the technology side too. Mm-hmm. This is where Ari has really excelled, and something that really gave us a head start when we started our business was the amount of time that she spent on social media, developing her social media platforms and involving people in those, and being very consistent every day about contributing to the content that she provides. So a lot of pictures on the coffees we're making, a lot of info on what's going on behind the scenes, that kind of thing. So that technology has been very important to growing our customer base, keeping them informed, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I don't participate in the social media stuff, but I can see the value that it's provided, and it's been wonderful that Ari has done, provided her time to market and do her thing on the social media platforms. It's been absolutely massive. She's done a very nice job of that.
Props to Ari, that's for sure. That's one thing I've noticed as well, is that you do that piece extremely well. Yeah. Other businesses that will remain nameless, they have an automatic feed of, hey, we do this, we do that, and it's just an automatic feed that's obviously done by either AI or someone that I think there needs to be a face behind the company.
And you see that shine through. It's Ari's personality that shines through 100%. Absolutely. I don't know. I don't believe the artificial intelligence. Now, she uses some of that to adjust the photos and do some stuff there. Yeah. But it's not going to replace the character that she provides the community through that feed.
And that is one thing that I've noticed, is that when people talk about Copper Cup, the first thing they say after Copper Cup is, that's a wonderful couple that's running that coffee shop. And so they don't disassociate the fact that
well, that's because she hides me in the back though.
they don't separate the fact that there's a couple behind it. There's a family, they have wonderful kids, and that connection is right there. There's a face, there's a family, there's people that are part of our Casper community right there, and it's not just another business. It's not just another coffee shop. So speaking about your place in this community, how do you differentiate yourself with the other coffee shops?
On the social media front, or just in general?
In general, we can talk about social media, but do you think that you're doing things similarly, or are they different?
I don't know. I guess the thing that I think makes us, I don't know if this is unique is quite the right word, but we are definitely genuine. The people that you see running it are it's just me and Ari, and that's kind of our family and the way that we are. Sometimes it's loud, a little bit crazy, and there's no hiding that. It's a very genuine experience, a family-oriented experience. It's not something that's over corporatized or anything like that. I come from a lot of the corporate world thing. That's not the kind of business I want to run. So everything that we do is very genuine and very straightforward.
What are the biggest challenges that you face as an entrepreneur in Casper?
Well, the biggest, not just our business, but most businesses, is just managing cash flow. Mm-hmm. And especially with a coffee shop, kind of one of the unique challenges there is you have a lot of your big expenditures, so your big downward arrows that are going out periodically, and then you're trying to counterbalance those with a lot of smaller up arrows coming in, daily. That's one of the beautiful things about Payroc too. I'll mention real quick, is having that money deposited the day after is it's unbelievably valuable. There are other places that will hold on to your money for a period of time, if you're considered a high risk or whatever, but that's something that Ari's brother ran into in their business was payment processing. That processor holding on to money for a period of time, because they were a higher risk business. That puts businesses out. So managing cash flow is incredibly important. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to do, and being able to weigh and decide where that money goes at any given time, with the understanding that you're having to build it back up a little bit at a time, is a challenge.
Absolutely. And I will say this about Payroc is the fact that when you do work with a direct processor as opposed to the multitude of resellers that are out there, you do run into these issues of them holding onto your funds, giving it to you 2 or 3 days later, a week later. I spoke to one business here in Casper that they were holding onto his funds for over 20 days, and he thought that was a normal process. So the larger company that you work with, the more direct processor that you work with, does make a huge difference. And then it does allow you to manage that cash flow, because the money does hit your accounts.
Yeah, and it's always cash flow. That's the issues with businesses in general. It's always cash flow. Being able to balance what's coming in to what's going out, and oftentimes you are very dependent on the cash coming in a timely manner to be able to meet your liabilities.
Mm-hmm. So what is your I guess the most important lesson that you've learned as an entrepreneur? When did you actually create Copper Cup?
Gosh, it's going back a couple of years now, 2-3 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say 2021 or maybe a little earlier. Mm-hmm. We actually started roasting, in an oven, mm-hmm. and then graduated to a small 1-pound roaster in the garage. And we were selling at little markets, so like the Funky Junk market or the Food for Thought markets at the time. So that's where we were doing a lot of our sales and building our real earlier customer base, was at these type of markets.
Okay.
So we had some time in the background before we opened our physical location, where we were doing some of that work and laying the groundwork and building our customer base. So when we opened our physical doors, we weren't starting from ground zero.
Right. Okay. So in all that, from your meager beginnings in your garage to a well-established business here in Casper, what's the most important lesson that you've learned?
Oh gosh, we learn lessons every day. Everything from getting the capital to get the project started and done. I guess what I'll say is just the totality of the project. So when I left school, and the experiences that I've had, you're never really prepared to do the entirety of the work that's required to run a business. Mm-hmm. So when you leave school, you're trained in a very specific field. When you're hired by typically a larger company, you work within in a bit of a silo where this is your job, these are your tasks, and you have a support system that supports other structures of the business. As a business owner, you're doing everything from mopping floors and cleaning toilets to running the finances, to going after the capital, to meeting with your vendors, to all your inventory supply, building relationships with your customers, and then pushing sales to new customers. You're in charge of it all, and that's the learning curve. Mm-hmm. It's being able to do all of it.
Right. Is there, can you put a number on the hours of that you work per week? Is this a 24/7?
Oh gosh, yeah. It's like I said, we've been going nonstop, 7 days a week since we opened, and most of those days are in the shop by 5 o'clock, and probably not done until 8 or 9 o'clock most days.
And I will say this is that whenever I see you with your kids, you have a son and a daughter.
Yeah, we got 2 sons and a daughter.
2 sons and a daughter. Is that you stop everything to talk to them? You stop everything to yesterday morning I was there and he was coming out from one of the back rooms, and you opened your arms, and I think that is amazing. I think it seems to me that you're trying to focus on keeping that balance between as a father, a husband, and a business owner. How do you manage that? How do you manage to keep that balance?
Well, and that's the reason that we live there. So when we actually, when we were getting the capital, getting this project underway, a piece of that was selling our house and moving into the business. And God love my wife. She was pregnant when we started all of this, and she had, our baby girl. We were more or less homeless for about 7-8 months while we were doing the construction and getting everything done, and to the point where we could move in and start working on opening the business. And so while she was on the road, I was back here doing my day job and trying to manage the construction side of things as well. So there was a period of tumult there, just getting things up and rolling. So it's one of those things where we had to have the full family buy-in. Like it's not just a business; it's a bit of a lifestyle thing. We live there. This is what we do. We're very passionate about it. Not just because it's coffee, but because of the community, right? We're here to support and serve and to help people, and we take that very seriously. And we can't do that if we're splitting our responsibilities and our time between a full, a house, which is a part-time job in itself, travel back and forth, and all that. We needed to be there running the business.
So it's definitely working for you. It's definitely, I think there's some new things on the horizon for Copper Cup. There's some changes that are about to take place. And talk to me about those changes, and talk to me about the vision. What's your vision for Copper Cup, and what's your vision for Copper Cup in Casper?
Right. So on the near horizon, we have a drive-through that's going to be opening up in the next few weeks. So we have our Clover POS system in place. The drive-through is ready to go. We're kind of working with Reed's Wraps on some final menu boards and that kind of thing, getting baristas trained up, getting everything kind of ready to roll so that we're able to manage a drive-through. So that's going to be big. That's going to bring a different customer base that doesn't want to brave the Wyoming winters. So we're looking forward to that. We've recently started roasting cacao beans, and looking forward to working with some chocolate and some different things like that. We've been playing with electrolyte drinks, combining those with certain vitamins and stuff, and coming up with some healthier solutions. One of the things that we're passionate about and we think brings a lot of value to our products is that we want to produce products that are quality to the point where you don't have to depend on sugar and artificial flavors to make the product enjoyable. So we're trying to reduce the sugar load, increase the quality of the product that we're trying to sell, and helping people live healthier. Is something that we're passionate about too.
That's great. That's great. Do you have any expansion dreams, or you have any expansion plans in the near future?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm kind of a busy bee. I always have things on the horizon. So, yeah, I generally operate in a 2 to 3 year time frame. So, within the next year to two, we'll probably start looking at expanding in some way. So right now we're in growth mode. We're gonna try expanding our outreach to wholesale accounts. Helping other coffee shops, really promoting ourselves as the consultants for coffee. If we want to support other places, improve their coffee, help them, and keep good care of their equipment, that kind of thing. So we want to be the ones that people look at as the consultants on these matters. So growing our wholesale account, and then eventually, expanding, opening different areas, that kind of thing.
Interesting. So you heard it here. If you run a restaurant or a business and you need wholesale beans, Dave is your guy. Talk to me. Give some advice to a young entrepreneur, 2025, or maybe the 25-year-old Dave. Mm-hmm. What advice can you give them to find success, to find their niche in Casper?
Well, a lot of it really does come down to a couple things. Number one is, finding something that people need and value, and that can be anything. And then from there, you need to work on being very, very good at that thing. And that can be anything. That can be any trades, that can be anything. But you need to focus on being good at that thing that someone finds value in, and then being able to repeat it over and over and over again. That just sound quality business, providing a good quality product, good price into a market that wants that product. But then the other thing is just the work ethic. It takes an unbelievable amount of time and energy. You need to develop your support system so that people are there to help you along the way, because you can't do it all on your own. You need to trust in the people around you to bring you the quality you need to improve your business. So a lot of it's hard work. A lot of it is that laying the relationship groundwork and supporting in building out your support system to get whatever your task is done.
That's good. I always say there's no secret. There's no secret to success. There's no overnight success. A lot of times, our overnight success took 20 years.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Oftentimes, people only see the finished product. You don't see the year or 2 years preceding. It's an immense amount of work.
Absolutely. And what I've found as well is at the beginning they think you're crazy. They think that you're wasting your time, and then once it works, then they want to be your best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's understandable too, because people are gravitated towards success, and that's definitely the case with Copper Cup and Dave and Ari. What is your opinion on, as an entrepreneur is growing, as you're growing in your business here, what is the role of local governments in as it relates to small businesses?
Oh boy, Ari's probably sweating right now. To a large extent, just giving, leaving the lane open enough to be an entrepreneur and to take risks. That's very important. However, there are areas where you do need that support and that system as a community to get people off the ground. And so, for example, when we were getting the capital we needed, we're working with First State Bank, and shout out to Natalie there. She was absolutely amazing. And one of the programs that we used was the small business capital, I believe, SBC or something along those lines. But anyway, they come in and they help you with a portion of capital to get the funding you need to get your project off the ground. That's a very important role that government helps play in getting these projects moving. Now, there's other areas where, you wish that you could have a little more wiggle room and things like that. But, it is what it is. You give and take. So,
right. Have you found that the local governments or the small business loans have been favorable to your business, and are they favorable in Casper as a whole?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Looking back on it, I don't, we didn't run into any major pitfalls or anything like that. It was, we had a lot of support in gaining the money we needed to get the job done. Even when we had to, crawl back and ask for more money one time, there's processes to get it done. It's just a matter of working through it, coming up with a good solid plan, knowing your finances, knowing your business, and being able to communicate it well to the people who are entrusting you with a large sum of money. And that's where I'll say thank you to Natalie and, to First State Bank and Wyoming Smart Capital. That was the name of it. Trusting us to get the job done, to be good stewards of their money, I think was very important, and we very much appreciate that.
And again, it's definitely the proof is in the pudding. I mean, you can definitely see that things are heading in the right direction for Copper Cup. So, from an economic point of view, are you concerned about the future? Do you have the support, the financial backing apparently to keep going? But what is your 5-look outlook on Casper economically and in the U.S. in general?
Well, local to Casper is really interesting too, because when I was a kid, the demographics of Casper were fairly upper middle age, it seemed like. And one of the big changes I've seen, and this is where we want to play a role in helping Casper as a community, is making it more appealing for the middle age family demographic. Those are the ones that bring a lot of economic growth. Those are the ones that spend money and keep the economic system growing. So where Casper was to where it is now, I can generally see a demographic shift, and you can feel the economy is definitely better than it once was, and I hope that continues. And I think having these type of businesses that make it appealing for those younger families that boost the economy, that do the spending, the majority of the spending, very important. So I hope they continue to promote that. There's actually an initiative in Wyoming. One of our friends at the coffee shop, Taylor Vignaroli, the great family, love those guys to death. But he works with the state of Wyoming on the business council, and their job is to diversify Wyoming's business portfolio and to help Wyoming grow, and especially from a small business standpoint. So they supply a lot of resources to help and to manage Wyoming's economic outlook, and their mission is to grow and diversify Wyoming's economy. So that gives me a lot of hope.
That's great. Casper, in the past, has historically been affected by the boom and bust of the oil industry. Have you seen those ebbs and flows in even the last couple of years that you've been in business?
Well, historically, I used to see that. The recent one, though, was interesting because oil fell to the point where we had 0 rigs in the entire state. Yet the housing and economy of Wyoming has never been better. That's something that's never happened. That's an anomaly from Casper's past. So, again, you hit a point as a city and as an economy where you have that self-sustaining size and inertia to weather those type of storms. And so, as the oil money starts coming back and rigs start coming online, and they start doing a little more drilling and bringing in more people, now we have the infrastructure to slowly grow and to help support that growth. And so hopefully that becomes more of a sustainable structure as opposed to being totally dependent on oil field money that kind of comes and goes periodically through time.
So your outlook is positive. You see a bright future for Copper Cup, for Casper, and you're ready for it.
Yep, absolutely.
That's wonderful. Well, Dave, this has been insightful. It's been educational. I appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us at this first Payroc, Wyoming Business Spotlights. Thank you to all of those listeners. Please like and subscribe to this video. Get the word out there, because I'm sure that people want to hear about Dave and Ari and their family over there at Copper Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.